Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world. Today we're doing a deep dive into something that honestly might break your brain a little bit. We are looking at the actual lens through which you view everything else. Your job, your relationships, the new...
Everything.
Yeah, literally everything.
And I know that sounds a bit ominous right out of the gate, but it's actually incredibly freeing once you grasp it. We're using Steven Schuster's book, The Art of Thinking in Systems, as our sort of primary guide today, along with some other structural analyses. But, just to be clear up front, this is not a book review.
No, absolutely not. We're looking at what you could call our cognitive architecture. I mean, I love that term. It makes me feel like I could just go in and, I don't know, rewire the fuse box in my head.
Yeah.
But let's unpack this core premise. When we talk about a crisis in perception, what are we actually saying? Because usually when you hear the word crisis, you think sirens, emergencies, panic.
Right. But in this context, the crisis is entirely silent. It's a crisis of mismatch. What we're saying is that the way human beings naturally process information, the way we are evolutionarily wired to think, is fundamentally mismatched with the complexity of the modern world. We are constantly looking for straight lines in a world that's made of circles.
That is the core friction, isn't it? We want A to lead neatly to B, but the world is just messy. And the central argument we are exploring today is that the persistent problems in your life, whether that's an argument you keep having with your spouse or a project at work that just keeps failing or even huge societal issues, they aren't usually caused by bad luck.
They aren't. And they aren't even usually caused by malice or incompetence, which is a tough pill to swallow because we love to think they are.
Oh, we love a villain. We really do. But the argument is that these problems are actually caused by applying linear thinking to nonlinear systems.
Exactly. It's the square peg in the round hole, but happening on a cognitive level. We think A causes B, but in reality, A loops back to influence B, which then changes A, which affects C, which delays D.
And that just, that breaks our brains.
It does. And Schuster points out a statistic early on that I found is staggering. He suggests that up to 95% of the population thinks linearly.
95%. I mean, that's basically everyone. And I read that and immediately got a little defensive, like, I don't think linearly. I'm a complex thinker. But then I started paying attention to my own day.
And what did you notice?
Okay, my phone battery died. My immediate thought was, stupid phone. Or, I need a charger. Problem, solution, A to B, linear. I didn't stop to think about the system of apps draining the background data, or the chemical structure of an aging lithium-ion battery, or my own habit of, forgetting to plug it in at night. I just wanted this straight line fix.
And that is completely normal. That's the default mode. Linear thinking is the logic of the machine. Cause and effect. You're looking for that single simple link. If you oversleep, it's because you didn't set the alarm, so next time set the alarm. And for simple mechanical problems, it works beautifully.
Right, if I have a flat tire, I just change the tire. I don't need to do a systems analysis of the rubber compound on the highway.
Exactly. It's efficient. But the crisis comes when we apply that exact same simple logic to complex systems, like a family or a corporation or an economy. Systems thinking is a complete paradigm shift. It's the realization that everything is interconnected, which means you have to stop looking at the snapshot and start watching the movie.
There's this great anecdote Schuster has that I think perfectly illustrates this difference between seeing the parts, the linear view, and seeing the whole. He talks about blindfolding his kids.
Oh, the gingerbread house experiment.
Yeah.
Yes, I love this one because it captures the confusion of perception so perfectly.
So picture this. He sits his kids down, blindfolds them, and puts bowls of ingredients right in front of them. And he says, okay, touch these things and tell me what we're making.
All right, let's play this out. You're the kid. You reach into the first bowl. What do you feel?
Okay, it's long, kind of rubbery, a little twisted, smells like anise. It's a stick of licorice.
Right. But if you're just feeling the shape and texture without context, you might think it's, I don't know, a rubber pencil or a weird twig.
Yeah, exactly. Next bowl, small, squishy, coated in sugar, gumdrops.
But again, blindfolded. Maybe think it's a crystallized fruit or some kind of sticky marble.
Yeah.
And the next one, wet and sticky.
Frosting. Or toothpaste, if I'm really unlucky.
So the kids are guessing based on isolated data points. One kid thinks they're in a candy store. Another thinks they're just making a mess in the kitchen. They are analyzing the individual parts correctly. That really does feel like a licorice stick. But they are completely missing the system.
Because they can't see how the licorice connects to the frosting, which connects to the graham crackers.
Precisely. They can't see the gingerbread house because they are only touching the parts one at a time. It's only when you take the blindfolds off and they see the interconnections, the frosting acting as mortar, the licorice acting as roof shingles, that the system suddenly makes sense. And that is the exact crisis in perception we are talking about today. We were all walking around blindfolded, touching a piece of licorice and insisting we're holding a rubber pencil when actually we're inside a house.
That is a haunting image, honestly. We are so obsessed with the ingredients that we're completely blind to the recipe.
And that blindness leads to massive errors in how we assign blame. We blame the flour for the taste of the cake.
Which brings up another analogy he uses that really clicked for me regarding blame, the boomerang.
The boomerang versus the box. This is essentially a physics lesson, but it doubles as a profound philosophy lesson.
So a teacher walks into a classroom, he throws a boomerang, it flies out, curves around, and comes right back to his hand. He looks at the students and asks, why did it come back?
And what do the students say?
They say, because you threw it.
Which is the ultimate linear answer. The actor caused the result. We love this explanation because it puts all the agency on the person. The CEO crashed the company, the quarterback lost the game.
But then the teacher picks up the cardboard box that the boomerang actually came in, and he throws it with the exact same motion.
Yeah.
Same wrist flick, same force. It just hits the floor. It doesn't come back at all.
So it wasn't the throw, it wasn't the external force, it was the structure of the boomerang itself. The behavior, the return flight was latent within the design of the object. Systems thinking is understanding that the behavior of any situation is usually built into its underlying structure, waiting to be released. It's not just caused by whoever happened to throw it.
That's a massive shift in how you look at the world. We love to blame the person throwing the boomerang. Oh, this politician ruined the economy, or my boss ruined this project. But you're saying we should be looking at the aerodynamics of the project itself.
Exactly. We focus on events. Systems thinking focuses on structure. If you have a system that is fundamentally designed to fail, even an absolute genius throwing the boomerang will eventually hit the floor. Or, taking the box example, if you have a cardboard box of a system, even a genius can't make it return to their hand.
Okay, so if we're going to stop looking at the events and start looking at the structure, we need to know what a structure is actually made of. It's like, if I want to be a mechanic, I have to know what a carburetor is. Schuster breaks down the anatomy of a system into 3 distinct parts: elements, interconnections, and purpose. Let's rip the hood off a system and look at these.
Let's do it. So first up, you have the elements. These are the actors, the physical things you can actually see, count, or kick.
This is the easiest part to grasp, right? It's the licorice and the gumdrops.
It is. In a human body, it's the heart, the lungs, the blood cells. In a basketball team, it's the players, the ball, the hoop. In a school, it's the teachers, the students, the physical building.
And he makes a really counterintuitive point here about change. He says elements are the easiest things to notice, but changing them actually has the least impact on the system as a whole.
That's right. And this completely goes against our instincts, because when a sports team is losing, what's the first thing we do? We fire the coach, we trade the star player, we swap out the elements.
But think about a marching band.
Okay, visualize a marching band. You've got the tubas, the snare drums, the uniforms. If you replace the lead trumpet player with a different trumpet player, is it still a marching band? If you replace the director,
still a marching band.
You can actually change almost every single element, every single person over a period of time. Universities do this constantly. Every 4 years, there's a totally new set of people. Yet the Ohio State Marching Band maintains its exact identity. The elements are highly transient.
So the system is totally distinct from its parts. That is wild to think about. I am not my cells because my cells die and are replaced constantly, but I remain me.
That's a great way to put it. But then we move to the second part of the anatomy, which is much more powerful, the interconnections.
The relationships between the parts.
The rules, the flows of information. Back to the basketball team. The elements are the players, but the interconnections are the rules of the game. The laws of physics dictating the bounce of the ball, the coaching strategy, the nonverbal communication between the point guard and the center.
And this is much harder to see. You can't reach out and touch a rule the way you can touch a basketball.
You can't. But if you change the interconnections, you change the system drastically. Go back to that marching band for a second.
Okay, I'm picturing them.
Keep all the exact same people, same instruments, but change the rule. Tell them, okay, new rule today, we don't play instruments anymore, we only sing a cappella.
Whoa. Okay, it's the same people, but that is definitely not a marching band anymore. it's a choir.
Or tell them, we don't march in formation, everyone just run around the field randomly. Now it's a riot with a soundtrack.
So changing the rules, the interconnections, has a much higher leverage than changing the people. Which means if you have a broken system at work, firing the people usually won't fix anything if the rules they are forced to follow are still broken.
Precisely. If you change the rules of basketball so you can run with the ball without dribbling, it doesn't matter if you have LeBron James on the court. You're playing rugby now.
But the most powerful part of the system, the real driver of everything, is the third part, the purpose.
Or the function, if we're talking about a non-human system. A toaster's function is to toast bread. It doesn't have hopes or dreams.
Right. But for human systems, governments, corporations, families, it's purpose. And here is the critical insight, and I really want you listening to lean in for this because it fundamentally changes how you look at politics and business. The purpose of a system is almost always implicit, not declared.
This is the ultimate watch what it does, not what it says rule.
Expand on that,
Yeah.
because every company has a mission statement framed in the lobby. Isn't that the purpose?
No, that is just the rhetoric. You deduce the actual purpose by watching what the system reliably produces over time.
Give me a concrete example.
Take a government, any government. They might say, our absolute highest priority is education. They give impassioned speeches about it. They print a slogan on posters. Children are the future.
Okay, so the stated purpose is education.
But then you look at the system's actual behavior. They slash school funding. They increase class sizes to save a few bucks. They cut teacher pay. But meanwhile, they invest heavily in, say, tax cuts for a specific corporate sector instead of school infrastructure. A systems thinker looks at that setup and says, the purpose of the system is clearly not education.
It doesn't matter what the press release says. The system is visibly designed to save money or reward a specific tax bracket. The behavior defines the purpose.
Exactly. Or take a biological example to strip the politics out of it for a second. A cat catches a lizard in the garden. The cat doesn't eat it immediately. It bats it around, it lets it run away a few feet, then pounces and catches it again. It just chases it. If you assume the cat's purpose is hunger-getting calories, the system looks incredibly inefficient. You'd think, just eat the lizard, cat.
But the observed purpose is clearly play or hunting practice.
Right. If you misunderstand the purpose, you will completely misunderstand the system. And here's the real kicker. If you change the purpose, you transform the system completely. If a public school's implicit purpose shifts from educating children to making a profit for shareholders, every single decision, every interconnection, and eventually every element will realign to serve that new profit purpose.
The textbooks change to the cheapest bidder. The teachers change. The students basically become customers or inventory.
And that happens all the time in the real world. Institutions lose their way because the implicit purpose shifted beneath them, even if the name on the building stayed exactly the same.
So we have the anatomy now. Elements are the parts, interconnections are the rules, and purpose is the true goal. Now we need to look at the mechanics. How does this machine actually run? Schuster talks about stocks, flows, and delays.
This is the plumbing of systems thinking. And I know the word plumbing sounds a bit dry, but this is exactly where all our perceptual mistakes happen. Let's use his bathtub analogy.
The classic bathtub. Okay, I'm visualizing a tub.
The water currently sitting in the tub is the stock. It is the accumulation. It's a snapshot of the system at one specific moment in time. Stocks can be anything in life. Money in bank account, trust in a relationship, carbon in the atmosphere, or fat on your body.
Okay, so the stock is just the pile of stuff.
Yes. And the flows are the actions. It's the faucet turning on that's an inflow, or the drain opening up that's an outflow. Flows are what change the stock.
This seems simple enough. Water comes in, water goes out. If more comes in than goes out, the water level rises.
It is simple physics, but Schuster points out a massive cognitive gap here. Humans are obsessed with stocks. We focus almost entirely on the current status. I am overweight. The bank account is low, the warehouse inventory is too high, we just stare at the water level.
But we ignore the flows.
We ignore the rates of change, we don't see the faucet or the drain, we just panic about the tub.
This actually helps me understand the concept of dynamic equilibrium he mentions.
It sounds like a fancy term, but it just means your inflow exactly equals your outflow. If you eat 2,000 calories, that's your inflow, and you burn 2,000 calories, your outflow, your body weight, The stock stays exactly the same. The water level is perfectly steady.
But the water isn't stagnant. It's constantly cycling through.
Exactly. And this is why something like weight loss is so mentally agonizing. You want to lower the stock. You want that water level to drop.
So I turn down the inflow. I eat a salad instead of a burger.
But the stock doesn't drop instantly, and this brings us to the most dangerous part of system mechanics: delays.
Oh, delays. This is where I absolutely lose my mind.
Delays distort our perception of reality. Stocks change slowly. Flows can change very quickly. You can decide to go for a 5-mile run right now. That is a fast change in your outflow. Boom, calories are burning. But your body weight, the stock will not reflect that change on the scale for days or even weeks.
I stepped on the scale this morning, knowing I ran yesterday, and I somehow gained a pound. I almost threw the scale out the bathroom window.
And that is the crisis in perception. You are reacting to the delay. Schuster uses a retail store example to show how these delays mess with our heads on a business level. I want to play this out because it explains basically every supply chain crisis we've ever lived through.
Let's do it. I'll be the store manager. You be reality.
Deal. So you're the manager. You sell, let's say, specialized hiking boots. You look at your inventory, your stock.
Okay, I'm looking at the shelf. I notice sales have dipped just a little bit. It's a slow Tuesday.
Do you call the factory and order less inventory immediately?
No, that seems reactive. It might just be raining outside. I'll wait and see.
That right there is the perception delay. You have to wait to separate the actual signal from random noise. You can't react to every single blip, so time passes. Now it's been a full month. Sales are definitely down 20%.
And now I'm getting worried. I have way too many boots in the back room.
Yeah.
I need to cut my order from the factory to stop the bleeding.
You decide to place the order. But you don't want to panic the supplier or lose your bulk discount, so maybe you just cut it a little bit at first. That's the response delay.
Fine. I send the revised order. Send me 20% fewer boots next time.
Great. But the factory is in Vietnam. They have to manufacture the boots, pack them, put them on a cargo ship, sail across the ocean, clear customs, and truck them to your store. That process takes, let's say, 8 weeks. That is the delivery delay.
8 weeks. So for 2 whole months, I am still receiving the massive orders I placed before I noticed the dip.
Yes, your stockroom is literally overflowing. You are panicking. You might even call the factory and scream at them to cancel everything because you physically have no room left.
And then 8 weeks later, the shipments finally stop.
But here is the kicker. What if, in those 8 weeks, spring hits and hiking season starts?
Oh no.
Suddenly, customers are flooding into the store. They all want boots. But you just spent the last 2 months desperately canceling all your incoming orders.
And you have no boots to sell them.
You have no boots. The stock is empty. So you panic order. You call the factory. Send me everything you have.
And that takes another 8 weeks to arrive.
By which time, hiking season is over and it's snowing.
And I'm stuck with a warehouse full of boots again.
This is called oscillation. Overshooting and undershooting your goal. It's like when you turn the shower handle because the water is too cold, but it takes 3 seconds for the hot water to travel up the pipe. So you turn it more, and suddenly you're scalding yourself. Then you crank it all the way to cold. You never find the middle ground.
That is the absolute essence of the crisis in perception. We react to the immediate moment, not accounting for the time lag built into the system. We are constantly fighting the ghosts of our own past decisions.
That's a beautiful way to put it. We're fighting ghosts.
So we have stocks, flows, and delays. But what actually drives the behavior in the first place? Why does the system move at all? This brings us to the engine of the whole thing: feedback loops.
Everything in a system works in loops. A causes B, which loops back around to change A. And there are really only 2 types of loops you need to understand. If you grasp these 2, you can understand everything from biology to global economics: reinforcing loops and balancing loops.
Let's start with reinforcing loops. This is what Schuster calls the amplifying loop, the gas pedal.
This is the mechanism behind success breeds success, or failure breeds failure. It's exponential growth. Think about compound interest in a bank account. More money earns more interest, which gets added to your balance, so now you have even more money to earn even more interest.
Or a viral video online. I watch it, I share it with 2 friends. They watch it, they share it with 4 friends.
It creates a runaway train effect. Reinforcing loops are incredibly powerful, but they are also highly destructive if they go unchecked. A cattle stampede is a reinforcing loop. One cow gets spooked and runs, which panics the cow next to it, who runs, which panics 3 more cows.
Cancer is a reinforcing loop too, right? Cells dividing unchecked.
Exactly. Nothing grows forever in nature without eventually destroying the host system, which is exactly why nature invented the second type of loop, the balancing loop.
The brake pedal. Or the thermostat.
This is goal-seeking behavior. The thermostat is the classic mechanical example. You set a goal of 70 degrees. If the room drops to 65, the heat turns on until it hits 70 and then it turns off. It is constantly trying to close the gap between the current state and the desired state.
And your body is basically a masterclass in balancing loops.
Oh, the human body is made of billions of balancing loops. You get too hot. You sweat, which creates evaporative cooling to bring your temperature down. You get too cold. You shiver, using muscle friction to create heat. You eat a donut. Insulin is released to balance out your blood glucose levels.
So balancing loops create stability. They keep us alive.
They do. But here is a really deep insight from the book regarding the persistence of systems. Why do systems, especially bad ones, persist for so long? Why is it so incredibly hard to change a bloated bureaucracy or break a bad habit?
I assume it has to do with these balancing loops pushing back.
Yes, systems persist because balancing loops defend the status quo. If you try to change a department in a corporation, let's say you want to introduce a new, highly efficient software platform.
I've been there. Everyone hates it immediately.
Right, the immune system of that comfort culture kicks in. The old-timers complain it's too complicated. The existing protocols don't seamlessly fit the new software. The skeptics drag their feet on the training. The system pushes back with all its weight to return to its equilibrium, which is the old, inefficient way of doing things.
So the resistance you feel isn't necessarily people just being difficult or lazy. It's the system doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is maintain stability against outside forces.
Correct. You are fighting a balancing loop.
This leads perfectly into our next section on system traps and incentives. Because sometimes the system stabilizes around a behavior that literally nobody actually wants. We create these massive traps for ourselves.
This is where it gets fascinating and honestly a little depressing when you look at the world. Actors within a system respond to feedback signals, which are incentives, not to the intended purpose of the system's designer.
We have a great case study on this from the research, the education system. Now, before we dive into this, a quick disclaimer. We love teachers. Teachers are the elements. We are criticizing the interconnections here, not the elements.
Right. This is a classic textbook example of incentives gone wrong. Let's look at the intended purpose. The government, the parents, the teachers, everyone generally agrees the purpose of a school is providing high-quality education for all students. Critical thinking, curiosity, raising good citizens.
Sounds incredibly noble.
Yeah.
But then we introduce a feedback signal into the system, high-stakes testing.
We want to measure the quality of the education, which is a reasonable desire, so we introduce a metric, standardized test scores. But then we attach high-stakes consequences to that single metric.
So now let's look at the subsystems. What are the new incentives for the teachers?
Teachers want job security. They have mortgages to pay. Maybe they want merit pay or a promotion. If their job security is suddenly tied directly to test scores, the rational response, the systemic response, is to teach to the test.
Forget critical thinking. Forget taking a day to explore a weird, interesting history sidebar because the kids are engaged. Drill the test. Because if the scores drop, the school's funding drops.
And what about the students' incentives?
They want to avoid remediation classes, or they want to get into a good college. So they memorize facts they will completely forget in a week.
Or, in extreme cases, they cheat.
And the administrators.
They want funding. They want their district to look prestigious, so property values go up because real estate agents love high test scores too. So administrators pressure the teachers to pressure the students.
So the end result is a system where everyone is chronically stressed, the curriculum is incredibly narrow, and actual learning might be lower, even if the test scores go up.
The sub-purposes, job security, funding, real estate values, all competed and created a behavior, rote memorization that literally no one actually wanted. No teacher went into teaching saying, I can't wait to drill multiple choice questions for 6 hours a day. The system trapped them.
That is what Schuster calls policy resistance.
Exactly. Policy resistance happens when you try to fix a complex system by just pushing on it with a linear rule like No Child Left Behind. But the internal structure of the system pushes back to protect its own subsystems.
It reminds me of the example from the outline about Romania in 1967. It's a much darker version of policy resistance, but I think we need to tell this story properly because it shows just how high the stakes are when you ignore system dynamics.
This is a profound tragedy of linear thinking. It happened under the dictator Nicolae Ceausescu.
Set the scene for us.
It's the late 60s. Romania wants to be a great, powerful nation. Sescu looks at his stock of people, the population size, and decides it's just too low. He wants a massive workforce to drive industrialization.
So his linear logic is make abortion and contraception illegal, which leads to more babies, which leads to a great nation.
Simple A to B cause and effect. He issues Decree 770. He bans abortion for women under 45 who have fewer than 4 children. He bans all contraception. He even instigates what people terrifyingly called the menstrual police. These were gynecologists who would inspect women in factories monthly to ensure they weren't secretly terminating pregnancies.
That is just horrifying. But looking at it purely from a linear statistical sense, did his policy work?
For about 1 year, yes, the birth rate absolutely skyrocketed. The flow into the population stock exploded.
But he completely ignored the wider system.
He ignored all the interconnected nested systems. He ignored the economic system. Regular people couldn't afford to feed these extra kids. He ignored the healthcare system. Hospitals weren't physically equipped for a massive baby boom. He ignored the food supply chain.
So what actually happened?
A humanitarian disaster. Because families couldn't afford all these mandated children, thousands and thousands were abandoned. The state had to open massive orphanages to house them.
And these weren't exactly nice facilities.
No. These were brutal warehouses for human beings, severely understaffed, terribly underfunded. Children were tied to their cribs, malnutrition was rampant, disease spread. It created an entire generation of children with severe developmental trauma. And on top of that, it led to a massive spike in maternal mortality because women desperately sought out illegal, highly unsafe abortions.
The system just couldn't support the linear mandate.
And ironically, it completely destroyed the great nation goal he was aiming for. The economy collapsed under the weight of it all. And when Ceausescu was eventually overthrown and executed in 1989, it was arguably that very generation, the traumatized children of the decree, who rose up in the streets against him.
The boomerang came back.
It hit him incredibly hard. The system resisted because the underlying structure wasn't at all compatible with the linear goal. You simply cannot force a massive flow if the stock has nowhere to safely go.
That is a really heavy example, but it absolutely proves the point. You can't just pull a lever and expect the machine to obey if you don't fundamentally understand the gears.
Note to our listeners, we aren't taking a political stance here on these issues. We are purely looking at how policies interact with complex human systems.
Exactly. It's about structural mechanics, not ideology.
Okay, let's shift gears and look at some specific patterns of how these things play out in competitive environments. Schuster calls them archetypes. We've got escalation, competitive exclusion, drift to low performance, and shifting the burden. Let's start with escalation. This is basically the race to the bottom.
Escalation is a reinforcing loop born entirely out of competition. It's two actors trying to surpass each other over and over.
The hot dog price war. I love this example because it's petty but so perfectly accurate.
Picture two hot dog carts set up right across the street from each other. Vendor A sells his hot dogs for $2. Vendor B wants more market share, so he thinks linearly, if I drop my price to $1.50, I get all the customers. Vendor A sees this happening. He's panicking. His stock of daily cash is dropping.
Right.
So he reacts. I'll match him. $1.50.
Vendor B says, oh, I'll show him. $1.
Vendor A goes to 75 cents.
And eventually, they are both selling hot dogs below their actual cost. They are losing money on every single sale. The economic system of their little intersection is being destroyed.
But neither of them can stop because they're only reacting to the other guy. They're thinking, I can't raise my price or I die. I have to lower it.
It's the exact same architecture as a political smear campaign. Candidate A attacks. Candidate B feels they must attack back even harder just to survive the news cycle. Candidate A then attacks even harder than that.
And the stock that gets depleted in that scenario is public trust.
Exactly. The trust in the democratic process erodes completely until both candidates are despised by the voters. The actors interpret the other's reaction as a justification for further reaction. I only hit him because he was going to hit me.
It's a trap. And unless one person steps out of the loop, which feels like career suicide in the moment, the system just spirals until it collapses.
Then we have the opposite of collapse, at least for some people. Success to the successful. Or, well, essentially why the rich get richer.
This explains so much about structural inequality.
This archetype is about competitive exclusion. In many systems, having a slight initial advantage allows you to capture more resources, which then gives you an even bigger advantage the next time around.
Monopoly, the board game, is the perfect model for this. And it's probably why it ruins so many family game nights.
It really is. Think about the mechanics of Monopoly. If you get lucky early on, just a random lucky dice roll, and you buy a Park Place,
They start getting rent money from the other players.
that rent money is a resource. You use it to buy houses and then hotels. The hotels get you exponentially more rent money.
And the other players.
They are paying you all that rent, so they have less and less money to buy their own property. The wealth gap widens exponentially. It's not that the winner is a financial genius, it's that the structure of the game heavily rewards the early leader with the capacity to lead further.
Schuster mentions college football dynasties here too.
It's the exact same loop. A team wins a championship. That winning team gets on national TV. TV time brings in massive booster money and national fame. Fame brings in 5-star recruits. Better recruits win more games.
And the losing team gets no TV time, no money, no recruits, and just keeps losing.
So when we look at inequality in society, we often blame the individuals. We say, oh, they are lazy, or on the flip side, they are excessively greedy. But often we are just looking at a structural loop of success to the successful. The system simply has no built-in balancing mechanism to level the scales once the tip begins.
Next archetype, drift to low performance. This is the boiling frog scenario.
This one is insidious. This happens when the goal of the system is allowed to slide based on past poor performance.
The examples given are the UK economy news narratives,
Right.
or just general declining customer service.
Right. Let's say a company's customer service slips a little bit. Call wait times go from 2 minutes to 5 minutes. Instead of fixing the root cause, which would mean hiring more staff, management says, well, we did okay considering the circumstances. Let's just adjust our official target wait time to 5 minutes.
It's been a hard year, let's be realistic.
Exactly. So the goal is lowered to match the degraded reality. Then next quarter, performance slips again to 10 minutes. Management says, well, compared to last month, it's not that bad.
You completely normalize the mediocrity.
The negative reinforcing loop overpowers the balancing loop. You stabilize at a lower and lower standard over time. The system drifts downward because you keep anchoring your expectations to the degrading reality rather than holding an absolute standard.
That is terrifyingly relatable. I mean, I think I do that with my own habits. I'll say, I'll just skip the gym today. Then next week, well, I haven't gone in a week, so going once a week is my new goal.
And pretty soon you aren't going at all.
Finally, shifting the burden. This is the addiction loop.
This is applying a symptomatic solution instead of a fundamental one. You have a headache, you take a pill.
The headache goes away, problem solved, right?
Briefly. But why did you have the headache in the first place? Was it stress? Chronic dehydration? Eye strain from your screen? By taking the pill, you delay the crisis, but you actually weaken the system's ability to solve the underlying problem itself. You just mask the signal.
If a business fixes a quarter of low profits by firing staff, which is the quick symptomatic fix, rather than innovating new products, the fundamental fix, they might show a profit next quarter.
But they have gutted their actual capacity to innovate, so profits inevitably drop again, so they fire more staff to compensate. They have shifted the burden from innovation to cost-cutting, and eventually the system completely collapses because there is literally nothing left to cut.
We've talked a lot about business, politics, hot dogs, orphanages, but Schuster dedicates a whole chapter to personal relationships. And honestly, this was the part that hit me the hardest. He argues that a relationship is really just two feedback loops constantly interacting.
This is powerful stuff. We tend to think of relationship problems as he said, she said. Who is at fault? But systems thinking looks at the dynamic structure between the two people.
Talk to me about the argument loop, because I have a feeling I'm going to recognize myself here.
Okay, let's say partner A, let's call him the withdrawer, tends to shut down when he gets stressed. We call that stonewalling.
Okay, that's me. I go quiet because I don't want to say something stupid that I'll regret later.
Okay, so your internal intent is de-escalation. You're trying to help. But what is the feedback signal that partner B receives?
Silence. Indifference. Maybe rejection.
Right. And partner B gets highly anxious when partner A withdraws. They feel ignored. So to get a reaction, to force a connection and close the gap, partner B attacks or criticizes.
Why are you ignoring me? You never listen when I talk.
Exactly. Now, how does partner A react to that sharp criticism?
I feel attacked, so I withdraw even further into my shell to protect myself.
Which makes partner B panic even more and attack even harder.
Oh, wow. It's a literal machine.
It is a reinforcing loop of negativity. Partner A isn't trying to be mean, they are protecting themselves. Partner B isn't trying to be mean, they are desperately trying to connect. But the system they have co-created is a machine that reliably generates conflict.
This connects directly to John Gottman's work on marriage, right?
Yes, very much so. Gottman calls behaviors like defensiveness and stonewalling the four horsemen. In systems terms, these are just feedback responses that deeply entrench the cycle.
So what's the actual solution? Because in the heat of the moment, it really feels like the other person is the problem.
The solution is spotting the loop, stopping the blame game entirely, because blame is linear thinking. You started it. No, you started it. Systems thinking says, we are caught in a loop. I withdraw, which makes you yell, which makes me withdraw. Let's step back and change the structure.
It takes the malice out of the equation. The problem isn't that you are a bad person. The problem is our dynamic is broken.
Precisely. If you can step outside the argument and say, hey, we're doing the loop again, you immediately break the cycle. You introduce a delay. You change the flow of information.
That is actually really helpful. It's not you are annoying. It's our system is glitching right now.
Exactly.
We're coming toward the end of our deep dive here, and I want to zoom out one last time. We've looked at small systems relationships, hot dog stands, bathtubs, but these systems don't exist in a vacuum. They are nested, like those Russian nesting dolls.
They are nested hierarchies, and this is where the crisis in perception really crystallizes into a global issue.
Walk us through the hierarchy.
Start with the individual, your internal mental models, your linear thinking, that is nested within an educational system.
Which, as we discussed, heavily rewards linear thinking and memorization.
Right, which is then nested within a broader economic system.
Which constantly rewards short-term quarterly growth and externalizes long-term costs.
Which is nested within political institutions.
And they all reinforce each other.
They share interconnected incentive structures. If the economic system demands short-term growth above all else, the political system will inherently reward short-term election cycle fixes. Fix it before November.
And the educational system will reward short-term test scores metrics over actual deep learning.
And the individual will be trained from birth to value, quick fixes, and linear problem-solving over systemic understanding.
It's a cascade. The linear thinking in our elementary schools is reinforced by the linear demands of the global economy. It's one giant, interlocking, reinforcing feedback loop.
It is.
So near the conclusion here, we have to explicitly ask the core question of this deep dive. What is the crisis in perception here?
The crisis is the persistent misperception of events as isolated rather than structurally generated. What is continually obscured is the actual feedback architecture producing the outcomes. Surface interpretation focuses on personalities or intentions, while the systemic design remains entirely invisible. Systems-level analysis changes visibility by redirecting our attention from events to structure, from blame to incentives, and from immediacy to feedback delay.
And that shift putting on those new glasses is the only way to actually solve persistent problems.
It's the only way. As long as we just treat the surface symptoms, the underlying structure will just generate the exact same problems over and over again.
I think my final provocative thought for everyone listening, something to mull over on your own, is to try turning the systems lens inward. Don't just look at the economy or your boss. Look at your own internal monologue. What are the balancing loops keeping your bad habits in place? What implicit purpose is your daily routine serving, regardless of what you tell yourself your goals are?
Once you see the loops, you really can't unsee them.
Structural clarity is the only path forward. Crisis in Perception examines how systems shape belief and how better tools help us see clearly.
This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind Crisis in Perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon.
For a shorter visual overview of this topic, see the mini explainer linked in the description.
If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.